What's going on, everybody? I just got back home from watching Rocky 4, Rocky versus Ivan Drago, the Stallone director's cut. Let's get into it. All right, guys, I just over the moon right now. So they announced this a couple of weeks ago. It was a Fathom event. They were going to do it at certain movie theaters across the country. So happened to be I was lucky enough that they were doing one by my house. This was Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago, the ultimate director's cut, done by Stallone. Stallone himself edited it and redid the whole cut. Everything, it was great. Prior to the movie, there was like a quick Q&A session with Stallone. There was a guy who was moderating it, and he was asking Stallone questions and everything. We learned a lot of interesting facts that I don't know if a lot of people knew or not knew. So one of the interesting things that I took away, at least from that interview, was the Adrian character. So originally, Talia Shire was not supposed to play Adrian. Their first choice was Bette Midler, which I'm totally blown away from that, because I don't know if I could have seen anybody else but Talia Shire play Adrian. Then obviously she passed on it. Then they moved on to their next choice, which was Cher, which I was totally blown away like that. And I'm like, and again, you guys got to remember, this was around the 60s and this was around like, we was talking about the original Rocky, which was like the 60s and the 70s. So, back then these women were a lot younger, a lot beautiful, more beautiful. Not to say that they're not beautiful now, but, times were different back then. So obviously Cher turned it down. Then they had Susan Sarandon, and that was, again, another interesting fun fact that Susan Sarandon, auditioned for the part of Adrian, and then she passed on, they passed on it. Then there was another woman that they mentioned that I forgot her name, but they asked her to play the part. They were going to pay her like $360 something a day, and at the last minute she decided to not do it. She went to go do a movie with Paul Newman, and in walked Talia Shire, and that was it. And then he even went on to say that Carl Weathers wasn't even Carl Weathers was like a last minute person to cast too. So he was saying how crazy it was, how everything came together at the last minute. So really cool. They talked about, the added clips that they had with Drago, and that, in the original version, Drago was more, machine oriented, like he didn't have a soul almost. And now he wanted to try to humanize him a little bit more in this version and show a different side of him, which they did. They actually did a really good job of that. Then they were talking about, he actually made a joke about the robot. So if you guys remember, again, from Rocky 4, the robot was a birthday gift, but they wound up cutting out all the scenes with the robot, and the guy asked about where the robot is now, and we were all laughing because everybody in the theater was laughing because he's like, oh, the robot is probably in like a scrapyard right now, compacting cars or some stupid shit like that. But it was pretty interesting. And then they brought up as the conversation was winding down, they brought up a very interesting thing about doing a prequel to Rocky and the characters, and he was saying like he wanted that to be more of like a TV series type thing. So who knows, we might get it, and if it does, obviously I'm gonna watch it, because again, Rocky's my jam. That's nostalgia for me. So pretty cool. So up until this point, guys, then the movie starts. So if you guys don't want the spoilers to any of this, I suggest you stop watching now. Just so if you guys do stop watching now, I do highly recommend you go check this out. It was great. It was interesting to see it recut from Stallone's perspective. A lot of newer scenes, a lot of dialogue. Some things were a little off to me, but again, you're trying to compare what you watched from the original to now. So, go into it with an open mind. So here are the spoilers if you guys are interested. So the movie originally started off, they were playing Eye of the Tiger. You saw the American glove and the Russian glove, and they come together and they collide, and then it cuts to the scene of, Rocky fighting Clubber Lang from the end of Rocky 3. And then it goes into he beats, obviously they show him beating Clubber Lang, and then it goes into the secret fight that they had at Mickey's gym. And, later on down the road in Creed, we wind up finding out that Apollo actually won the third fight. So then what they do, instead of that opening, they cut right into it where Mickey just died. Rocky pulls up to the statue on the motorcycle, takes his helmet off, throws it at the motorcycle, and then from there he goes to Mickey's gym, and he's there, and then obviously that's when Apollo shows up, and he talks to him about training him, and they're, and getting into everything. Then they cut from that right to the fight with Clubber Lang, and then after that, no, we didn't get any Eye of the Tiger or any of that. So then it just came across the screen after he beat Clubber. It came up on the screen. It just said, Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago, Ultimate Director's Cut, and then it cuts right into it. So they cut out the part, again, if you guys are familiar with the original Rocky 4, you're going to understand what I'm explaining to you guys. Cuts out the part with the when he pulls up to the house after the fight, and then obviously his son's out there with the camcorder and everything, and then they do the whole birthday celebration thing and the robot. Done. They didn't even put that in there. They cut that part. They cut the part where Apollo, they cut the part where he's in the driveway washing the cars and the robot's there and Apollo calls him on the phone to tell him he's coming over. That part cut out. Everything with the robot got cut out. The robot didn't even exist. So the robot didn't even exist, which was crazy. So then it actually cuts to the part right after the intro where Apollo's in the pool swimming, and then they start having the broadcast TV where they're talking about how Drago came over. They're doing the press conference and they want to fight Rocky, and then he gets up and then he actually goes to Rocky's house. Then they have the whole conversation. They actually get to the conversation. Then obviously a lot of the stuff was still left in there, like the part where they're rewatching their fight and they're having some dialogue back and forth, and they're talking about, Rocky's talking about to Apollo, we can't do this anymore, and he's like, well, it's easy for you to say, you're still on top. They have that whole dialogue back and forth while they're watching their replaying their first fight, and then obviously Rocky agrees to help him out. They have the press conference, and then the press conference goes right into the fight. And then we don't even get the part where they cut out the part completely where Rocky was in the locker room with Apollo, and that's when Rocky's talking to him, and Apollo's like, "Oh, I feel so good. I could eat nails." And then of course Rocky, being Rocky, is like, "Oh, well, I see him in the garden, but I never think anything of it." And he's like, "No, Stallion." He goes, "I didn't say snails." He goes, "I said nails," and then the nails. So they cut that part completely. Then obviously he fights, Apollo dies, then they go to the funeral scene. They added another whole segment to the funeral scene, which was great. You got to see Apollo's trainer talking, giving a little bit of a speech, and then Rocky gave a little bit of a speech. And then obviously, they go to Russia, they do the whole montage thing. There were a couple other parts in there. The one thing that I was kind of disappointed in is that they cut the segment short with Adrian, where he comes back from the press conference. She's at the top of the stairs, he's at the bottom. They cut the whole segment in a little. Well, they didn't cut the whole segment. They cut it a little bit to where he's at the end saying, "Oh, to beat me, he's going to have more heart. He has to have more heart than me. If he had, and then if he has more heart than me, he's got to be willing to die himself. They cut that whole speech out, and then they obviously go into the montages, which we're going to need a montage. So it was great. Then we get to Russia with the training. They added a little bit more dialogue when they were in Russia. The fight, I'm just gonna skip right now just to the fight, because everybody knows there's the training montages. They didn't cut anything from the training montages. They added like a couple extra little clips here and there of them training, but that was really about it. The fight is really where a lot of the difference was. So they actually showed him getting ready in the locker room, taping him up, and him talking to himself, having like an inner monologue moment. Then we got to him walking to the ring, which we didn't see a whole lot of in the original one. And then, obviously all the Russian fans were booing him and everything. Then Drago comes out, and, Drago's entrance is a little bit more elongated than it was in the original. Then they have the fight. There were a lot of different, few different sequences that were added in the fight. Also with the montages, there were a few different sequences. And the ending, the ending changed too, which was crazy. So obviously we all know at the end, obviously Rocky wins. So what they changed was the way Rocky won. Because if anybody remembers the end of that, they see, Drago trying to make the 10 count, and he's trying to get up, and then he falls back down. This time, he knocked him down, and he just kind of like tilted his head up like he was going to get up, and then he just fell back down, and that was it. It was kind of like, Tyson's Punch-Out when you knock one of the characters out. You Mario comes out, starts counting, and he picks his head up, and then he puts it back down, and then he's like, oh, TKO. So, it was kind of like that. Then he goes into the speech, obviously, if I could change, you could change, we can all change. And the Russian politicians that were at the top, that whole scene changed, because if you remember, the main Russian politician gets up and starts applauding and everything. No, they just got up and they walked out. They didn't even applaud it. Another new added scene is that obviously, if you guys remember, again, going back to the original one, they end it where he's in the ring jumping up and down with the flag. That's not how it ended in this one. How it ended in this one is they started playing Eye of the Tiger instead of Hearts on Fire like in the original one. Then you see him walk up to Drago while Drago's in the corner, and they touch gloves like a sign of respect. And then Rocky gets out of the ring, and then obviously it's just them walking back into the locker room, and then that's how they ended it. Overall, very interesting take. I thoroughly enjoyed it just because I'm a Rocky fan, and that's just the way it is for me. I don't know how a few other people might take it. If you're like a purist and you don't like people touching the original ones, then it might not be for you. For me, it was great because you got Stallone's take on it, and Stallone's directed a bunch of movies, he's written a bunch of movies, so to see this from the way he wanted to do it, he said they originally wanted him to complete this project of recutting it in like 3 weeks. He said during the Q&A it took him 9 months, and he said he still wasn't quite happy with the way it turned out. So, but again, you can't always be a perfectionist, but I get it. He wanted it the way he wanted it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. For those of you that missed it in the movie theaters, it turns out it's actually going to be available on Amazon Prime, so you guys can actually go pay and watch that if you want to. Again, I highly, highly recommend it if you are a Rocky fan. I normally don't do these types of reviews, so, a lot of people watching might be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking. Listen, I'm not a professional. I'm just giving you guys my opinion and my thoughts. I'm giving you guys snidbits and tidbits of everything like that. So I enjoyed it. I highly suggest if you're a Rocky fan, you go watch it just so you can, it gave you the feel, it gives me the feels, and it was so cool. It was so cool to actually see it in theater. It was just awesome. So, yeah, guys, that's gonna wrap up my my thoughts and review of Rocky 4, Rocky versus Drago, the ultimate director's cut. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys do like me doing stuff like this, let me know, because I'm always looking for new content to put out on the channel. I'll review a bunch of things. I know we've used to do it in the past and we kind of stopped doing it, but I'm always glad to bring things back. So if you guys like it, let me know in the comments below. Also, anybody that's watching this, if you've seen it, let me know what your thoughts were in the comment below, because I want to see how you guys feel about it as well. And yeah, guys, that is gonna wrap up this video. So if you guys like what you saw, please be sure to give a thumbs up. If you're new, please be sure to subscribe. As always, be sure to hit that bell so you get notified every time new content gets uploaded to the channel. As always, you can check out all the excellent content we always offer right here at MCE. And until next time, guys, it's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight, rising up to the challenge of our rival.